Please be advised that on June 24th, 2024 at 5 p.m., there will be a special meeting of the Medford School Committee to be held remotely via Zoom. The purpose of this meeting will be to attend to continued business. This meeting is being recorded. The meeting can be viewed on live on the Medford Public Schools YouTube channel, through Medford Community Media, on your local cable channel, Comcast 9, 8, or 22, and Verizon 43, 45, 47. The meeting will be recorded again. Since the meeting will be held remotely, participants can log or call in by using the following links. And the meeting ID is 915-1478-9149. Comments or questions can be submitted during the meeting by emailing medfordsc@medford.k12.ma.us. Those submitting questions or comments must include the following information: your first and last name, your Medford street address, your question or comment. Roll call, Member Russo.
Second. Member Brandman.
Present.
Member Graham.
Here.
Member Antapa.
Here.
Member Olapade.
Present.
Member Ryan.
Present.
Member Russo present. Mayor Lungo-Kern.
Present. 7 present, 0 absent. We all may rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. We have executive session pursuant to General Laws 30A A3. The Medford School Committee will convene an executive session to discuss the negotiation status with Medford Educational Secretaries, AFSCME Council 93, and Teamsters Local 25 custodians, because an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee, and the chair so declares. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to enter executive session.
By Member Reinfeldt, seconded by
Second.
Member Intopper. Roll call, please.
Member Brandley.
Yes.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Antapa.
Yes.
Member Olapade.
Yes.
Member Reinfeldt.
Yes.
Member Russo, yes. Mayor Lungo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion is approved to go into executive session. Okay. We have everybody back. We're going to go to continued business, which is A, possible ratification of the Medford Educational Secretary's ASME Council 93 contract. And is there a motion on the floor for approval?
Motion to approve the Medford Educational Administrative Assistance ASME 93 contract.
By member seconded by member Branley. A roll call vote, please.
Member Branley.
Yes.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Intapa.
Yes.
Member Olapati.
Yes.
Member Reinfeld.
Yes.
Member So yes, Mayor Longo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes. Great work to the team. Next up is the possible ratification of the Teamsters Local 25 custodial contract, which is a 6-year deal. Is there a motion on the floor for approval?
So moved.
By member Intapa, seconded by
I'll second.
member Branley. Roll call, please.
Member Branley.
Yes.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Intapa.
Yes.
Member Olapati.
Yes.
Member Reinfeld.
Yes.
Member So yes, Mayor Longo Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes. Again, great work. Thank you. We also have a report on the 2023-2024 school year superintendent evaluation goals. Dr. Edward Vincent.
You're muted, Dr. Eby.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was going to grab the document. I'm going to screen share. The presentation this evening is going just to be providing the committee with an update on the goals that were approved at the January 8th, 2024 meeting. And so the district improvement goal for this school year is that the Medford Public Schools will improve systems and structures that directly impact student services, student and family and communications, and school facilities and operations. And so there were 11 key actions that the committee requested to see movement on. And so I want to report out on the district goal, the student learning goal, and the professional practice goal. So under key action number 1, improve accessibility to facilities and develop a ticketing system. We have completed that first task. We have partnered with Operations Hero, which will be the system that will, Operations Hero is a system that we will be using to manage our programs and ticketing systems, things that are being entered into the ticketing system for the district to address. That was one of the first pieces that we were able to secure this year. And so Operations Hero is the portal that will be used for our school facilities. And the team consisted of Dr. Cushing and principals and a few others who helped to say what the ticketing system could look like for the Medford Public Schools. Key action number 2 was regarding consistent communications to families. And 3 was effective, appropriate, and consistent messaging when there were also emergency scenarios. And so from a communications perspective, we are actively using some more We are actually using Final Site, which is our website mass notifications. And we are using Talking Points, which has been getting tremendous traction. And it seems like my computer's going a little slowly, but I'll try to explain what the links are that I've hyperlinked within the document for your review. But for Talking Points, this school year, we sent over 803,705 messages were sent out to families. And so this Talking Points is able to translate. It shows all the languages: English, Portuguese, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Simplified Chinese, Arabic, Bengali, Vietnamese, Nepali, Punjabi, Albanian, and there are many other languages. But also we use it for English. And as you can see, this turquoise blue, it goes out to the whole community, and it's really being used effectively. Again, here, EL students is represented by the turquoise bar, non-EL, and then unknown. But again, it is a tool that we are using as a district. A tool that we are using as a district, and it is yielding really great communication, quick communication with families. Take it out. Just one moment. Go back. Apologize. No. I apologize. There we go. There we go. Okay. In terms of a different outcome, which I didn't address, was to finalize the employee handbook. Hyperlinked within this document is an employee handbook that shall be completed. It is about 97% completed for the Medford Public Schools. There are a few areas that we are just receiving additional consult on, and I am continuing to work with Enough Abuse. They have a portion, a separate employee handbook or an agreement about rules of engagement with students. And so I am also receiving consult from them. So our hope is to have this employee handbook fully finalized by the summer to be able to launch and start the new school year. Another area that we have addressed in terms of district improvement goals is accessibility of parking outside in front of Medford Public Schools. The loop at the high school here had limited ADA accessible parking on the loop. And so what we did was we took the side closest to the building and we added accessible parking in front of the entire high school loop. And on the opposite side of the loop is now visitor parking. So family members of the community, parents that are coming on campus, they can come to Medford High School, find parking on the loop, come in for meetings, come in to register, and come in and out. And so that was something that we did to make the high school a more welcoming environment, and especially where we are working on making the high school campus more ADA accessible by having multiple ADA parking spots at the front of the building. It is definitely more accessible for members of our community that need greater and closer access to the building. And we also have one reserved spot for our military veterans on the visitor side. In addition to that, we established, a charge was to reestablish the Capital Planning Committee and begin looking at building systems to create a replacement timeline for individual systems that may not be working properly. And so the Strategic and Capital Planning Subcommittee did meet March 26th, and there was a May 21st meeting. The agenda and minutes are hyperlinked and attached there. In addition to that, bullet number 5, seizing every opportunity to collaborate with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. We have an active school building MSBA group, and there is even a separate website, which is buildingmhs.org. And so you can access it through the district's Medford Public Schools website, or you can go directly to buildingmhs.org. And that was work that was done this year to, again, secure the website for the work that's taking place with MSBA and the Medford High School Building Committee. So that was bullet number 5. Number 6, about enhancing human resource practices, job posting, hiring, payroll management, and labor relations. We have put different systems and structures in place, working closely with the finance office. We've added codes so that it's more easily identifiable for the district to be able to say where the funding sources are coming from, and that work is continuing to be done. This year, there was a request for a timely budget process. That budget process did take place. I hyperlinked in one of the slide decks from a timely budget process that took place. We also had an excessive heat protocol. That was an ask. That task was completed this year. And at an earlier meeting, that meeting was, I believe it looks like it was the 11th of May, where the school committee approved the excessive heat protocol for what we need to do when we have extreme temperatures. Revised middle school and high school schedules. We worked with a partner, and again, here hyperlinked in is the presentation of the Medford High School scheduling opportunity review. And this abbreviated slide deck explains the potential models that will provide greater scheduling. And here at the high school, where we have the 6-day schedule and the 5-day schedule, what a potential schedule could look like with the 5-day and the 6-day merging and becoming a 5-day schedule. A 7-period day is one of the proposed model that was recommended by our outside partner. And there were several staff that also had worked on potential schedules, and the schedules were very similar. Bullet number 10 was implementing the new bullying policy, full implementation, in addition to having updated bullying form, which is hyperlinked in here. We also have bullying report slides, presentations that have taken place for administrators. Ms. Bowen, our Director of Student Services, oversees that and reports all information to DESE. The 11th request was the outcome of the high school climate study. And within that, I hyperlinked in the presentation from Principal Cabral, Ms. Cabral at the high school, providing an update on where the high school is with the high school climate. And it has improved markedly, and we're really, really pleased about the progress. In terms of the student learning goal, we have included what our students are doing here under key actions, things that are supporting the development and the implementation of the new curriculum. Into reading, here is the elementary update that Dr. Galusi shared, which gives a lot of information that is related to interreading. data, and this goes out to all elementary staff and the elementary level to let the community know as well, where are students, how are they performing with their work in data. Some of the outcomes that were asked to look at NWEA math growth data. The end of year testing window closed on June 12th of this year. And so there is preliminary data for DIBELS and professional development. And at the start of next school year, Dr. Galusi will present, the most current updated information on how it ended. But we wanted to provide you with some data, as this was an ask on how are we making progress with our student learning goals. Under professional practice goal, I am still working collaboratively with MASS, Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, and DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I am part of the BIPOC Superintendent Network. And in addition to that, the BIPOC network is for superintendents of color. And I'm part of Leading Now, which is a national superintendents group. And I will be attending the Leading Now convening this July. In July, we will be meeting in Columbus, Ohio for a retreat of superintendents across the country. And I've linked some pertinent information from DESE and MASS on what the sessions entail. I've hyperlinked some slide decks in here, and what is happening with Leading Now and how they work with superintendents to support school districts in today's era. And again, we do look at race, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which is just another way of saying DEI, but that's what READY stands for, our EDI. And then I continue to collaborate with our district attorney's office. And I included here in January, DA Ryan invited all superintendents and chiefs of police and chiefs of fire to a convening, and we met in Lexington, where they had wonderful presentation to talk to superintendents, chiefs of police, and chiefs of fire, just about our roles and the work that we're doing, supporting our communities. So I just wanted to present that data to you, the committee, and I know that you will take it and work with it. And, I'll be open to emails or any other, respond to any questions that I can respond to right now, but I can also respond to specific questions if you choose to send them to me electronically. That is my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Edward Vincent. If there's no questions, are there any questions for the committee?
Mayor?
Member Graham.
I just wanted to talk about what we have done in the past from a process perspective, since we have so many new members, just to sort of get the ball rolling. So this is the superintendent's self-evaluation. And then we as a committee have to compile our evaluation and then present it back in an open session just like this. But what we did last year that seemed to work was that the evaluation subcommittee had a meeting, established a timeline of all the steps that had to happen from our perspective, and then held a second meeting where they compiled the results from all the different pieces of evaluation from each of us individually, and then that came to the floor to be reviewed here and presented and ultimately approved. So I think those are the next steps is for that committee. And I think member Olapade chairs that committee. So I think the next steps would be for you all to find a time to meet and establish like the right timeline. And we can dig up and obviously support you with the process, because I think everyone on the committee is new. So we can definitely give you some process like guidance along the way in terms of what needs to happen. But I think that the most important thing for all the members to know is that everything that we do here as part of compiling the superintendent's evaluation, it is a matter of public record and must be done on the floor. This is not stuff that happens in executive session, which is the law. It's not, would not be my preference. I'm sure it would not be the superintendent's preference. But there are, unfortunately, like that is the process that we have to go through. So all of your subcommittee meetings will be held as posted subcommittee meetings. Members of the public are free to attend. The sort of mechanics of how you compile all have to be done in open session. So I just wanted to put that out there because there are some next steps there. And I just wanted to make sure that if there are questions about that, we give folks an opportunity to ask some questions.
Thank you for the outline, Member Graham. If there's no further questions, we'll get that meeting scheduled and keep us posted on that. We're gonna go to recommendation to approve potential partnership with City Year. Dr. Edward Vincent?
Yes. So one of the potential partnerships, Medford Public Schools, we were approached by a former colleague that I worked with who is now leading City Year Boston. And this partnership would potentially bring 2 teams of AmeriCorps members to Medford, with each team being composed of 5 to 6 members. City Year AmeriCorps members are trained to provide high-quality support to students, teachers, and the entire school community to accelerate student learning and performance. AmeriCorps members work closely with principals and teachers to deliver critical services. These services, part of their whole school, whole child model, are delivered in schools by highly trained, diverse teams of young adult AmeriCorps members who serve full-time for 1 academic year. A few of the activities that they provide are one-on-one and small group instruction, supporting extended day programming before and after school, supporting small group social emotional skill building, supporting whole school activities for students, families, and the community. They serve as success coaches and mentor student leaders. And the near peer age and diversity of the AmeriCorps members, they are young adults between the ages of 18 and 25. Many of them, it's a gap year between finishing college and going out into the workforce. It gives them an opportunity to connect and relate to students that they serve. And as a result of being part of AmeriCorps, they also receive benefits in turn from loans and things like that for volunteering their time. They are compensated. I shouldn't say it's volunteer. They're compensated at, a small rate, but they do receive loan support or access to special grants for members that do support AmeriCorps. This opportunity, when it was presented and we were approached, I immediately thought of 2 of our schools which serve some of our most vulnerable populations, and that would be the Missatuck School and the McGlynn School. It is not a free program. There would be a cost to the district, and we are in the process right now of working on we are in the process right now of, it is considered a sole source, but we are working with City Hall. Mr. McHugh has sent it forward to look for procurement, to look at the cost and look at the contract that was proposed for the Medford Public Schools. So my recommendation is the cost of the city year team for Medford would be approximately 100,000. The normal cost is 120,000 per team. And you know, through negotiating and working collaboratively with them, they are willing to work with Medford this year for the discounted rate of 100,000 for a team of 5 to 6 individuals who would be supporting our schools. And if we are able to have the 2 teams, you know, that would be my desire, for us to work with 2 teams and pilot those 2 teams. And if for whatever reason we could not secure 2 teams, then I would ask the committee for permission to secure 1 team to come to the school and support our school.
Thank you, Dr. Edward Vincent. Member Rousseau, then Member Olopade.
If you don't mind, I'd let Member Olopade go first.
Member Olopade.
Thank you, Member Rousseau. So I have some opinions on this as a former member of City or Boston. I'm excited to see that the possible partnership does exist. I think the mission and the goals of City Year as an entity, as an AmeriCorps program, is phenomenal. I had a great time doing it when I graduated from high school. I was working in an 8th grade mathematics course in Charlestown. And so I got to work hand in hand with educators, the administrative staff at Edwards Middle School, and in City or Boston themselves. A couple things for people to know on the committee. One of the really interesting things about how City or operates is that we receive quite a bit of formal training preceding our time in the schools, and while we're in our program, we're still receiving that training. We have a lot of one-on-one coursework that we go through. We did about 6 weeks of training preceding the start of the school year, full time, every single day, going to work sites, working with your team. You then are landed in a work site around the greater Boston area, and you'll work with your team for the full year. Depending on your preferences or your ability and your age will determine how you are posted to your workspace. So only college graduates are allowed to work with high school age students. City Year as an entity usually is from the 3rd grade to the 10th grade. We understand through research and a lot of studies that 3rd grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade are the focal points of maturization. And that's where a lot of students find themselves needing to determine if they can continue on with the current coursework that is being given to them by the state or by their school. By the 3rd grade, that's when research has determined that if a student is falling behind, hitting certain academic thresholds, they'll never recover. If they can't continue to find those thresholds, more often than not, it's going to be harder and harder for them to find the missing material and retention that they need to stack up against their peers, which is why City Year has continued to be an entity that's, I think, in over 30 states, probably in 3 different continents at this point. I found a great love for doing the work. It's what got me excited about education in general, was that work right after high school, working as an 18, 19-year-old, working in a classroom with a partner teacher, getting to work with a subsection of the class each day. You're in class all day. They do a lot of really good work. I will say that as we continue to have a conversation about a partnership, I want to make sure that we're conscious about how they're not treated, and we shouldn't treat them as full-time teachers. They don't have the education or the certifications to be that. I'm not suggesting that that's what's happening here, but it's important that we as a district understand that they are support staff who have done really good work and are there to support our educators and our teachers as much as possible and the community that they'll be working in. But they are not, I don't think that we should treat them as being full-time staff because they don't have the qualifications to do that. And so as we continue to figure out how we're going to implement a team in 1 or more schools, I think it's important that we are communicating just religiously with that school about how they'll fit into a classroom day and day, every day. Because with my school and how my program worked, I was working with the same teacher every day. Some schools have different needs, so you might be switching from one teacher to another. But my school, the primary focus was one teacher each day. Math and English are the two primary focuses of City Year. Now that may have changed in the last 5 years since I did it, but math and English are the two focus subjects. Social emotional learning was a really big thing. Teen mentoring was another big part of it. Outside community programming was another big part of City Year. So there's so many benefits this organization has to offer any community, any district. It's really important that we understand that they have a mission and a plan as an entity or as an organization, and they, I think, do a good job of trying to fit into what each district is asking of them. It's a matter of how do we, I think, utilize their skill set and what they're offering us to the best of that cost to us of that $100,000 at the reduced rate that the superintendent mentioned. So those are just some of the first thoughts that I had about this, and I'm excited about the potential of it. I just want to make sure we're really careful about how we're implementing them, and what that actually looks like for the students, especially, but the teachers themselves, and that we're not leaning on them too much, because that's going to potentially burden the staff in general in a way that we don't want. And it's going to put us in a position where we're not conscious about the lack of certified, educate teachers, when we have a support staff who are there to support us to the best of our ability. So thank you for letting me rant for a moment.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson?
Yes, I just say the Senior Vice President, Monica Roberts, she is on the call as well. And I had asked Dr. Cushing to, I think, allow her to speak. I'm not sure if she was able to speak, but I wanted her to also be able to talk about City Year. Aaron, Member Olapade, I appreciate your sharing. And what I did not say to the committee is, when City Year came out in the 90s, I was one of the fortunate teachers to have been blessed with City Year core members in my classroom. And it was, they were such a wonderful addition to the school, the culture, the climate. They were a force, a positive presence, and again, helping with before school programming, after school programming, supporting instruction, and really building great relationships with the students. So I personally experienced it, and it was a very, very positive experience, and they were highly sought after, and there weren't enough teams to go into all of the schools. So I see Member Rousseau has his hand, and then maybe after Member Rousseau, Monica Roberts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Member Rousseau?
Thank you very much. So I don't really know much about City Year other than Member Olapade having been a part of it, and now I know that superintendent was recipient of services, or however you would describe that. I think that's awesome. I'm curious. I did read the entire memo, and I'm wondering what the stipend is for 45 hours of labor per week. If anybody, I'll ask my questions and then I can go back if somebody has answers. I'll just get them all out once. How do we ensure that they're not doing any work that is currently covered by one of our CBAs with our union partners? We can't take union work and give it to non-union members, and I'm concerned about that. I wonder what of the $100,000 is used, what percentage of that is used to pay the employees, which I don't know if they're considered employees, since the word stipend is a very specific legal thing used, which I typically dislike that word stipend when people are going to be working full time. And then I've read a couple of articles that seems to suggest the City Year folks spend a significant amount of time talking about City Year while they're in the schools, drumming up support for future City Year participants. And I guess I would ask, Member Olapade, how did you hear about City Year? If I could ask through the chair.
Member Olapade?
Yes, I heard it through a family friend of ours. When I was looking at college opportunities, we had the opportunity to attend a City Year sponsored event. The former executive director, Sandra Lopez Burke, I believe her name was was one of the panelists at the discussion. So I was able to speak with her after the event, and she kind of illustrated some of the things that City Year was doing. And I was a senior at the time, and it really excited me about what they were offering students, in the major city. And I thought that it was a really cool opportunity for people that were graduating from high school and college, and that gap year period where you kind of had some more time to discern your interest in what you wanted to pursue. And so I was able to apply and work in close proximity with her. City Year Boston's headquarters is the same headquarters building as City Year, as the entire nonprofit, I still believe. And so that was a really cool opportunity for me to be in that space and see, I think, people who were supercharged about the educational opportunity that they were offering to students and supportive of our teachers. And so that was what got me excited and interested in the program originally about 5-6 years ago.
Thank you.
Great. And thank you. If you're all finished, Member Russo, I'll invite Monica Roberts to say a few words. Monica, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and all the members of the school committee. And thank you for committee member Olapade for being such a wonderful spokesperson talking about the work that we do. I think you aptly described it. I'll try to, in brief, talk about the program since it's been talked about quite a bit, and then answer the questions that I heard. So City Year typically will place a team of about 6 young people in the building. At the elementary level, they're generally they stay with their teacher through the course of the year. They start at the beginning of the school year, and in June when they graduate from our program. Our young people are ages 18 to 25. I would say about a third are high school grads, 2/3 are college grads, typically in our core. This past year, about 52% were BIPOC or identified as BIPOC and had some were multilingual or bilingual. So we think about that as we're placing them, in addition to making sure that they're appropriately placed in terms of their skills. And then, of course, by age, our high school grads are serving in the elementary schools, our college grads are serving in middle and high schools. Our core members do focus on ELA and math, so really those 2 core skills and making sure young people understand them and are able to do that work in the classroom, working alongside the teacher with a list of students that we call a focus list of kids who are either off track or need keep up support. And they do that work in small groups or an individual one-on-one support. Our goal is not to supplant any work that educators are doing in a building. We are to supplement. So part of what we do to manage for that is we have an impact manager who's assigned to your school, who is managing that team, who is meeting with the teachers, who is responsible for that school partnership and meeting with the school leader to make sure that we are on track. We also have an instructional coach who comes and does work and observations with our AmeriCorps members to see how they're doing in the classroom, working with the teacher, how they're working with the young people, and to coach them around that work, so that while they're not trained teachers, we are really doing work to help them understand how you both build relationship and how do you deliver academic content, though you are not an educator yourself, and so providing that supplemental support. In addition to that, I do visit every school partnership, including observations myself, and that is in part I want to hear from educators, I want to hear from the school leader, I want to hear from our AmeriCorps members. It's really my dipsticking to see how we're doing, what's effective, what's not effective, and what do we need to do differently. And so we're constantly fine-tuning our process to make sure that we're delivering the best service at the end of the day. Our desire is to have improved student outcomes. For this reason, we also work on attendance. So some of our students are on our list for chronic absenteeism or just attendance challenges, and we do that work. If a school has an attendance team, we do that alongside them. Our impact manager will generally serve on that team. And our core members are able to make phone calls home, which we do training for our impact managers and our core on how to effectively engage families and leverage the opportunities that they have when they see families, because they are outside in the morning greeting young people and their families to support the school around attendance. And then lastly, we talk about social emotional learning and that near peer relationship that allows for mentoring and provides support where young people can have conversations with our AmeriCorps members who are trained then to pass that along to the appropriate person at the school. So for example, one of our schools had a student had a gun in the building this last year, and that was reported to our team, and our team immediately reported that to the school. So they were able to handle that. One of the things we find is that near peer relationship allows for information to come up very quickly that we can then pass on to the appropriate folks at the school who is able to manage and support it. Our core members are typically working about a 9 to a 9.5 hour day because they have to earn 1,700 hours. In general, we do have two types of slots. We have a 1,700 hour slot and a 1,200 hour slot. 1,700 gets you to 9.5 hour day. It's why we're providing before and after school. They have to complete those hours in order to get their education award. The 1,200 hour slot is a 6.5 hour day for your schools. I think we'd have a conversation about which one makes the most sense. But I think initially we've been thinking about the 1,700 hour slots. For that, we call them volunteers because they are getting paid a stipend. That stipend for this year was 27,300. We are working on trying to make the role more financially equitable for young people in a city and area that is very expensive to live in. And knowing that the hours that they're putting in and with the additional planning that they may have to do on the weekends, they may not be able to hold a second job. Many times I find very few people are able to hold a second job and or take classes. So this is their commitment for this year. And so that is what they get. They do get some benefits. So they get medical benefits and other. And so the $100,000 for the year supports a portion of that. We fundraise for the other portion and bring the other portion to the table. We also, the one program that we won't be able to place there this year, but as you're thinking about out years and whether the partnership is something that you want to do, we have a Teacher Fellows program in partnership with UMass Boston, where our AmeriCorps members are able to come back for a second or third year. And they take their coursework at UMass Boston in the evening. They are enrolled in a Master's of Education program. Their city year training during the course of that year is their practicum. So they are in a classroom with the teacher full time. It's a little bit different from our typical AmeriCorps member experience because those AmeriCorps members are doing before and after school. This person is training to be a teacher. And so their sole focus is doing that work with the teacher. For the first half of the year, they're supporting and working with the teacher. For the second half of the year, they are running the classroom and the teachers coaching. Typically, what we find is that the schools that are training these teachers are often able to recruit them, and it's been a great pipeline program. So our fellows for this year have already been placed, but I think as we look into out years, it's a great opportunity to think about if you are looking to build your teacher pipeline. It's a really good program, and our AmeriCorps members are usually able to complete the program if they are leveraging all of their ed awards for as little as $2,000 to $4,000. So it's a great benefit for them. We pay for the MTELs, we pay for all their testing. They are all dual or triple certified when they complete our program. So I'll pause there and see if there's anything that there may be questions.
Great, thank you very much, Monica. Member Russo.
Thank you. Are these fellows considered employees or and therefore getting, Social Security benefits and all that stuff contributed?
No, they're considered because they're considered volunteers, they get the stipend. They do get they can opt. It depends on how they choose to do their taxes. So they do pay taxes and those things. A lot of it depends on the individual in terms of what they pay into.
Thank you. So they would be paying both sides of Social Security, Medicare out of the 27,300. So that, when we think about most minimum wage workers, they are also getting the employers paying for all of that stuff. So
and we pay for something. We do have to pay the employer share.
Oh, you do pay the employer's share?
Yeah, we're not making, yes,
Oh,
sir.
so they're, okay. Thank you. I was a little confused on that. Thank you. And as for what they would do in the school, and I realize these are early days in this conversation, but I've heard people say they could be substitutes, they could help when the paras are out. And those are, well, I don't actually think substitutes are part of any of our CBA, any of our contracts, but I am deeply concerned that we're going to have them fill in for work because we can't find employees to fill jobs that we have posted in our schools. And you know, that's just not allowed. You can't just have non-union workers taking over union work, regardless of why. So I mean, and I don't think that's certainly not a question for you, Ms. Roberts, because that's a superintendent issue and perhaps a school committee discussion as well. But so $100,000, a team of 6 at $27,300. I mean, that's not even covering the cost. So where does the rest of the money come from?
Fundraising.
Yes, so a big part of my job is also fundraising on the other end, looking for public, corporate, individual, and foundation dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Member Reinfeld?
Yes, thank you. I don't want to repeat the questions from Member Russo and Member Olopade. I do want to say I've worked with a number of programs and in this sort of thing, and I have found that City Year is one of the more supportive, providing the support to employees than some of the other similar programs, and even those as part of the AmeriCorps program. I've found City Year to be really a solid partner. The question that I have maybe is for the administration more than you, Ms. Roberts. It's around what this looks like in terms of planning coming into the school year. I think anyone who has been in education, or well, really many jobs, it's not exclusive to education, has had a student teacher, an intern come in, and that can often be more work for the person supervising. Obviously for great benefit. I really, really support programs that are teaching these skills and giving these community collaborations an opportunity to grow. So it's not about that, but what kind of foundation and conversations would we be having with the teachers and the administration in the schools, particularly noting that we are now in the summer period and many of the staff will be coming back right before school starts and moving in. So it's a question about onboarding and the commitment for what it looks like on the ground for really being able to get this going. I appreciate what Member Olopade said, that this is an and, not an or, but even adding ands to the top of already very full jobs is a lot of work. And I'd love to hear about how that is managed.
I can start by sharing kind of what we have done, and then certainly the superintendent, I'm sure, will have some other thoughts. We typically will have our team come in when teachers are starting one, just to get folks acclimated, to meet the team, to connect, to hear a little bit about our program. We would like generally to start with an informational session for the staff and the school leaders so they understand what they're getting. We do not force teachers to take us. And in fact, that's in terms of our conditions of success. We want teachers who want our AmeriCorps members in the classroom. We can talk with them about the deep training we do. We have a month of training before the school year starts. We do partner with our 2 other district partners, Boston and Everett, to provide training on supporting ELs, English learners, and students with disabilities, also getting certified in mental health and wellness as well. So there's a lot of support that happens that we would share with your educators. And then we have a matching process. So if the teachers raise their hand and they say, "This is, I'm interested," we try to match them with a AmeriCorps member. Our impact manager who's on the ground is going into classrooms, having conversation, doing observations, seeing how it's going. In the case that it's not working, we will pull an AmeriCorps member out of the classroom and try to find a more suitable placement for them. So we do try to be flexible, and I think thinking about the startup time, given where we are in the school year, is something that we can do to make sure it works for the schools and the educators.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other part of that was making sure the teachers and support staff that are being worked with have the opportunity to express this is our specific need in this specific year.
Yeah, that's part of what we call the hour one conversations that the impact manager has with the individual teachers who raise their hands. So we do collect kind of what they're looking for, and that's part of how we are able to match our educators. The one other thing I didn't get to say is at all times our core members must have a staff person in the building. So the concern about if a teacher is out, them being the substitute, it's just you actually have to have another adult in the classroom. I think what is helpful is often they are the through line because they've been with the classroom teacher, so they know the content and they can provide a lot of support to the substitute to making sure that the students are not missing anything in the interim.
And
Thank you. Dr. Edmondson, and then Member Graham.
thank you. I just wanted to comment, Member Reinfeld, that I have been in communication with Monica, and in addition to that, Ms. Roberts. I have had a preliminary conversation with the new administration at the Missatuck and saying that, you know, we're presenting this before the committee. They both are eager and excited if it is actually a possibility that if the committee agrees that it's something that we can go forward with. They are excited about having the opportunity to have an AmeriCorps team supporting the school. And again, it's not to supplant anything, but it's truly to support the work that's happening there. And they have a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for the new year that is coming forward. And we would continue to plan. And as Ms. Roberts explained, that there's a lot of training that the core members go through over the course of the summer, so that if the committee were to agree, the team would not be assigned to Medford Public Schools until August to have an opportunity to interact. And so while people are on summer break, again, I'm not sure if there's an opportunity to do something midsummer or earlier in August to have, you know, an opportunity to do a meet and greet. But the benefits, there are so many benefits to having a city year team at a school. If it wasn't something where we had to be more cautious, I would have been asking for a team to be assigned to all 4 of our elementary schools. If that had been, you know, an option, but to start off with a smaller pilot, that's what the thinking of our team is here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Graham?
Thank you. I think this is a question for Ms. Roberts. What kind of supports does City Year provide to its staff, given that that stipend would not allow you to live in the area, right? So that is not enough money to pay rent, eat, do all of those things. So are there other supports that you're providing to the team so that they can actually live in the area that they are working in?
Yes, so we do provide support through our national office on finding housing. We get a lot of information so that folks are able to find housing that is affordable, and also to do some roommate matching. So often some AmeriCorps members are kind of housing together. For folks who are moving, we do provide what I would call a housing stipend to support them in their move in addition to that. We have a person in our local office, who provides support in terms of any other needs they may have. For example, we did have some folks who ended up homeless last year, so we paid for a hotel and helped them find housing. So we understand that there are a lot of challenges and that these are young people, so we are also providing that additional support. The other things I'll say that we are helping them on while they're in City Year is really their life after City Year. So what is their long-term plan, getting them into college or programs that might provide economic mobility as well. So we're kind of looking at the trajectory while they're with us and then beyond.
And then I think this question is maybe for the superintendent in terms of like how you envision these teams being used, I guess like the things that I started thinking about immediately are some of our operational challenges around substitute coverage, around after school. But it sounds like substitute coverage is not an option in terms of how they work with our staff. So would these students, like if they're in the classroom working with teachers, I think the question about union work is a good one to be asking to make sure that we're not tripping on our bargaining obligations. But also, if we were to try to think about like the after school challenge of capacity in some of the buildings, I know Brooks is sort of an anomaly because the program is too big for the building, but at Missituck and McGlynn and the Roberts for sure, there is some capacity, I think, to expand the program. Would these staff being infused into the after-school program allow us to take more students into the program that Megan runs?
So I did have a preliminary conversation with Megan Fiddler-Carey, and she was very excited about the prospect of having additional members to support the work that is happening. There are some stipulations, which Ms. Roberts was talking about with the team, but part of it is that they are able to support that programming. So if a core member if depending on the size of the space and depending on the total number of students, they could be supporting supervision and instruction if they were in a cafeteria space and there was still, another adult there to provide additional supervision and support. So that is one of the key pieces of them having access to another adult administrator to support whatever the work is that they're doing. So even if it is the before and after school programming, they could be working with a group of students and you could still have the after school team leader, supervising the work that all the people are doing, and that the core members would be able to be working with students under that same level of supervision. So it in essence, yes, it could work. And they would be able to increase capacity, keeping those parameters in mind.
And so tactically, do you have a number of people that we could take off the wait list and place into the program?
So I did not ask Ms. Fiddler-Carey about what the wait list would look like and how many more people could potentially be added. I didn't ask that question. I just said that I shared with her that I was presenting this evening to the committee and that I would defer to the committee and I would have additional information later in the week to let her know which way. So she is aware, but I did not ask her that next piece of information. But again, based on the guidelines of how they've explained how we can use the city year core members, we definitely would be able to increase capacity because they would be supervised by one of the after school leaders that are there. There are leaders and there are assistant leaders. So there is a ratio that is in place and they would be able to support, provide further support for our community.
Yeah, I think I would definitely be interested in knowing, like, how do we quantify that? Because that's an important and ongoing discussion that we're sort of always having. And we have wait lists in all the buildings. So if there is like a quantifiable way to say what we would be able to do, that would, I think, be ideal. The other question I have is about the work that they're doing in collaboration with a teacher in a classroom. How are they trained on the curricula that our teachers are using? So I know we have been like sort of fighting the good fight around the science of reading and using evidence-based instruction. And I am a little nervous about tutors in the mix who may not be apprised of all of those things that our teachers are sort of on the front lines of every single day. So I was just curious, and maybe that's a question for Ms. Roberts, how that works.
Yeah, I think we try to do two things that will be a little more challenging for this year, but typically our AmeriCorps members are training with our district partners. So in Boston and Everett, they are being trained in their literacy and math initiatives. Boston is providing additional training on how to do intervention services. So that is something that we can do alongside your educators, or if there's someone from your team, we can bring them to train our team over the course of the summer as they're here getting training for a month. The second thing we do is our AmeriCorps members, we ask teachers to have planning time with their AmeriCorps member so they understand the content that they're going to be covering for the day and how they might approach delivering it. So that's part of what we try to create in terms of the structure so that there's that planning time. And the AmeriCorps member isn't doing something differently than the classroom teacher would do. And then on a question of after school, I'm going to try to get a firm number for you, but I think typically in most of our schools, one AmeriCorps member is supporting anywhere from 5 to 10 young people, depending on the model of the program. We both run our own programs, and we are also expanding capacity in existing programs, understanding that you have an existing program, happy to do that, and we've done that elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Just to piggyback from the chair, if I may, Member Graham's point, I think we did have discussion on the after-school programming piece in the past, and I think we all agreed that we were going to try to, this would be a great addition, obviously, for after-school programming, but also make sure that we don't create more spots for 1 year and then can't fulfill them the year after is one thing we just want to think through. And then the second is, are we going to be working throughout the summer to increase hiring, especially at the 3 schools where we have the 60 students in the after school program, so that, because we did make a recommendation that we try to increase the other 3 schools. I know the Brooks is at 100, over 120. So I just want to make sure that's still in the works. The 2020, 2021, 2022 were hard to hire. I know that, but I'm hoping we make some strides this summer to increase, get some of those children off the wait list. Member Reinfeld?
Yes, I apologize, this might have been said already, but is the third, we're talking about an elementary school and a single classroom. Is the 3rd grade a fixed point? Because I think the schools that we're looking at, particularly the Missatuck, is where we've had a lot of concerns about the average class size being a lot for a single teacher. And that's not necessarily in the 3rd grade, for example. So how does this intersect with our class size questions? We're having another adult in the room.
I can share that we do grades 3 to 10. So we're able to do those grades depending on what the school leader thinks are the needs, and where teachers are willing to raise their hand to have an AmeriCorps member.
So it's not fixed for a particular grade. Thank you.
That's great. Yes, thank you. And then just the funding source for this. If we had one team, it's 100,000. If we have 2 teams, it's 200,000.
Yes, and I spoke with Mr. McHugh, and where the city year model, the model that we were talking about includes expanded day before and after school programming. Jerry did say a portion of that money could be used. We could authentically use some of our before and after school programming money to support City Year, because they would be offering extended day support to our students. And then we would look at, either other revolving accounts or other areas to supplement. So, and when I spoke with Ms. Megan Fidler-Carey, she too was just excited about the opportunity to have the additional support. And I said to her, you know, we could try to use a little bit of the before and after school funding. And she was definitely in support of that. And Mr. McHugh is right
Yep.
there. Speak to it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because we'll be able to hopefully accept more children off the wait list, bringing in more funding to hopefully support at least a portion of these, this funding need. Okay. Is there a motion on the floor? Member Rousseau, then Member Intapa?
Member Tapa was first.
Member Intapa, then Member Rousseau?
Yeah, no, thank you everyone for giving this valuable information. I think, from what it sounds like, the City Year program is a phenomenal program to help, professionally develop students, at a time in their life after high school. My initial concern was about the funding portion, about the 100,000 or the 200,000, and scraping from revolving funds or from the before and after school program, because I know it's on the agenda tonight to talk about the budget, and it's not ideal what we're doing in the budget, and we're trying to fit in $100,000, possibly $200,000 program that I don't know if spend budgeted for in the budget, and that part sort of just concerns me a little bit. I guess to put it out there before we vote. And also, is this vote, to start negotiations, to start talks, or is this vote to approve the actual program? Because while it seems like an amazing program, and from what I could tell, it really is, I just have concerns about bringing it in a time where we're doing layoffs and scraping revolving funds to just get by for a level service, and we're trying to introduce more. So I'm sorry to be so negative about that, but that's just sort of where my concerns are at.
Thank you, Member Intapa. I don't know if anybody has any response to that, but I'll go to Member Rousseau until.
Thank you. And I appreciate Member Intapa's point about adding an additional new expense at a time when we're about to have a discussion about our budget and the layoffs that are involved in that. I think that's an exceptionally good point, and a little embarrassed we didn't get to that one already. But I feel like there's significant critical questions we need answers to, aside from the funding. I think knowing that our union partners are okay with this is not unimportant. And the deployment, I feel like a plan should, even a generic, wireframe plan of what this would look like, without, obviously you won't have the information about which teachers raise their hands. I mean, you're not going to have that happen until after we're already like, yes, we're going. But after school, that sounds fine, except that they can't be the after school people that are replacing the other adults we would want to have. And expanding after school for 1 year so that next year we are going to be in crisis mode because we are going to have fewer people to staff it. I mean, it's one thing to be on a wait list and to be like, I wish I could have gotten after school care. And then it's another thing to get it and then 12 months later be told you had a spot, you don't have a spot anymore because we just can't recruit enough people to fill those spots. And that concerns me about any times we talk about expanding after school, is that I feel like after school, the staff spends an enormous amount of time trying to find staff. And that's just a permanent problem of after school programs everywhere. So the idea of having more space is delightful. I think especially if you have a kid and you need it. But I don't know that we want to make a bed of crisis that we're going to have to all lay in a year from now or a year after, when the city year has not continued. And I do just have some, those are my big concerns, and I feel like I would rather have answers before we approve continuing with this. So if we could get those answers at another meeting, I think that would be a better time to motion to approve this. So, I mean, I'd like to motion to table it to our next meeting.
I just want to say through the chair that there is another neighboring community that is also on the table. And I was very excited and appreciative that Ms. Roberts thought of Medford and said, let Medford know that there is the possibility. That other community is Somerville. And so I've been here 6 years, and this is the first time that we got a viable option to get a city year team. They're not something that is normally readily available. And so, I would just ask the committee to, if you need additional information, I can try to get as much as that information as possible, but we're going to be in July. And if we're not going to be able to go forward, then I know they'll need to go forward with another community or another district.
Maybe you can elaborate then, Dr. Edward Vincent, on what would the plan be if we had 12 students, high school or going into college or in college, and then that allowed us to bring in 100 more children to the after school program. What will we do the next year? How would we explain it to families? Or are we going to be trying to hire starting June of 2025 to make sure we can maintain that level?
Where Ms. Roberts gave the ratio that each person could potentially supervise 5 to 10 students. So if it was 12, that the additional 120 seats, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me for the 2 schools, but what led me to look at the Missatuck and the McGlynn, those are our Title I schools. Both of those schools house our newcomer English language learner program. And so Ms. Roberts talked about some of the core members being bilingual, and just thinking about the programming at the McGlynn complex, which is a K-8 complex. And so I did speak to Ms. Roberts about, there are nearly 1,000 students on that campus. So could we potentially have a team split between both sides? And so looking at demographics, those are our 2 schools that have, according to DESE, they represent the highest needs. And so I was looking at it from that perspective, starting with the Missatuck first. I don't know what the wait list is. I don't know if Ms. Galusi might be able to get a hold of Ms. Fiddler-Carey to see if there might be some numbers in terms of for those 2 programs. But I did ask Ms. Roberts what happens at the end of the year. I said, if we get 2 teams and it's incredibly successful and we would like to go with 2 additional teams, would we be able to get in queue to receive the 2 additional teams to support both the Brooks and the Roberts, which equally would benefit? And she said, yes, that would be definitely on the table as an option. I know there's a desire for us to have more seats. We have applied. Ms. Fiddler-Carey is working with Tufts and other partners, constantly trying to see who would like to work those limited amount of hours in an after-school program. And, that's a very fluid population. We hire people, they're with us for a year, and then they go on to do something else, or they may graduate from college. And so we're looking to hire new people. So that work has not stopped, but it is something that's, going to be ongoing. I think families would be happy if they knew, okay, we have it this year. And if we know, I don't know at what point in time, Ms. Roberts, you notify districts that they're in queue for the following year, so that we could plan accordingly. But I think families would definitely take advantage of this year while something is in place to increase coverage for more students after school care.
And apologies for not leading with this, but our goal is never to be in a district or a school for a year and pulling out. So I should say that in establishing a partnership, we're hoping that it can be one that is that you all find beneficial and that you all will want to keep. So our goal is to really to have roots and to really integrate ourselves. That is what makes the City Year model powerful. When I go into a school that has had City Year, I go in with my red jacket. Kids don't need to know my name. The jacket means something to them. They're asking me if I'm a City Year and whose class I'm serving in, because the jacket means something to them. So our goal is really to take root and to have a deeper partnership. So we would not be looking to pull out next year unless you all didn't find it to be a beneficial partnership. And for that reason, we would be looking to continue after school programming. And if for whatever reason, which happens with some of our school partners, the school is not able to continue its program, our team does develop programs. Often they're a mix of enrichment and academic support. So we can do some of that work. And that doesn't, I think, hopefully that answers the questions that you all have, but our goal would be to return.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Thank you, Dr. Edward Vincent. Just finished my thought from the chair, and then I'm going to go to Member Brandley and then Member Reinfeld. I think for me, I'd be a yes, because I think we have an after-school crisis, and I think it seems like a wonderful program, and of course our teachers could use support, and I think that we could bring in more revenue to be able to support this fee that is going to be $100,000 for 6 people. I just know that as a committee, we've been asking for, several years to increase numbers at our other 3 after-school programs, and I don't think we've increased it at all. So that makes me concerned. It's either we don't want to increase it at all, or we really can still not hire to increase at those 3 schools. And that would, in turn, if it's the hiring piece that is the issue, whether City is here for 1, 2, or 3 years, and I like that it's a continued partnership. I just would have concerns for families just not having that support and creating their lives around an after-school program, and then only having it for a year or maybe 2. So that's just a concern I have. But Member Brandley, then Member Reinfeld.
Member Brandley, you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me now? So I think, just to go along with the mayor on that, I agree. I think supplying something for a year is great, but then what happens after that? And then I understand what you're saying, super, but I think we needed more background info for this, because I have to agree with Member Intapa that, here we are looking at this budget that we've gotten hundreds of emails on about cuts. And then to add this, I don't know, I kind of feel guilty. And I think it's a great program. So Ms. Roberts, thank you for your time. And I love that Member Olapade could elaborate on this from a firsthand experience, because it is a great program. And I think this is something that, here's a moment where here's a great program that I would love to say, this is awesome, let's do it. They're going to be here for more than a year, supporting our after school and our before school program. But because we've dug ourselves this hole, now it puts us in a different kind of position. So, and just one other thing, Member Graham had mentioned about the curriculum with the staff. Even as paraprofessionals, we don't get any training on curriculum. We go in and day out without any training. We are, at the beck and call sort of our classroom teacher to say, oh, this is what we're doing today. Okay, I'm going to follow along. And so I think even that part, even as staff, sometimes we're not trained in the things that we're doing day to day. And so it's great that they can pitch in, but it almost is equivalent to the parent in that point. So I just wanted to let that be known too. So thank you.
Member Reinfeld and Member Graham.
Yep, I think these are all really valid concerns, but I also think this is an opportunity to pilot what community partnership looks like And that's something we should be doing. That's a way forward in making Medford a great place to learn. And so I can hear concerns, maybe 2 programs is too much for a pilot, given the uncertainties, but I think this is something we can learn from, and it will lay a foundation for being able to have more partnership, more community support, training people to be in education and make a difference in students' lives. I think it's a valuable pilot.
Thank you, Member Rydfeld. Member Graham?
Thank you. Ms. Roberts, I respect the fact that there's a lot of questions that we've posed that are not for you to answer. And that's sort of always the case with these kinds of sort of big strategic efforts. And I wondered if we could plan to have a follow-up meeting, perhaps the week of July 8th, to be able to provide you a final answer. One of the things that I am thinking about is that we also have due at some point a report back from Megan Fidler-Carey about any ways in which the administration has come up with any expansion. And we talked about things like using the Andrews Middle School. We've talked about a whole bunch of things. So I just wonder if, given if we could just get by ourselves a couple of weeks, could we put together a cohesive plan about how this could work effectively here in our district that would be compelling? And with the framing of it all as sort of supplementing the after-school staff as its primary mission, which I think is sort of the thing we're all coalescing around. The revolving fund account for the after-school program could be relied on to pay for this. So the budget concerns that my colleagues have, which are well-founded, are separate concerns when you're talking about a revolving account. So I guess my roundabout ask is maybe twofold. One, could we get back to you in a couple of weeks so that we can do a little bit of due diligence planning on our end? And two, Superintendent, could we schedule a meeting for the week of the 8th where we circle back, close that open loop about after-school programming with this in mind, and say, this is sort of, what does this look like as part of that solution?
We can definitely schedule a meeting during the week of the 8th. And I'll have Lisa connect with the committee regarding that. But I defer to Ms. Roberts because I don't know what timetable you're on with your other obligations. So I appreciate the attention, the invitation for Medford, but I
Same.
defer.
Yes, thank you. And I just so you all know, I've been at City for 2.5 years, but prior to that, I was in senior administration and with Boston Public Schools. So I understand the questions and the challenges and appreciate them. On our end, if we could have some definitive decision by the 8th, that would be helpful. And just for a few reasons. One, I need to decide if I am placing a staff person to support the schools there. I need to then plan for that. And we are starting our training for our staff who are supporting schools in July. So this is just one thing, wanting to make sure we have someone well trained. Two, our AmeriCorps members are already looking for housing. And so we do encourage them to live in the communities in which they're going to serve. Most do. And so as they're looking for housing, to come and start with us on August 1st, that just limits their ability to find housing and plan to live closer to Medford. We certainly don't want to encourage people to move to Medford and then they end up serving in Boston. So I think those would be the two challenges. And I would say if you know sooner, I would deeply appreciate knowing sooner so I can think differently. We certainly think that Medford represents the student population is who we serve, and we have been paying attention to Medford. It's why we knocked on your door. So we're very interested in the partnership. We would probably need to know by the 8th just so that we'll have to make some decisions on our end as well.
Yeah, your point about these folks needing to find housing in our housing market is a really good one, actually, because it is really hard everywhere. And Medford is not an exception to that. So, you know, I don't know, you know, where the rest of the committee is at. I think if we could, I don't know if maybe we try to approve this tonight with an expectation that some sort of report can be provided to us in the next couple of weeks that sort of answers some of these questions that has been posed, just so that we have sort of a closed loop process. And then we can and still, I think, should have our meeting about broadly what happens with after school. But it would sort of take that contingency out of the mix for Miss Roberts and the staff that we would want to be here. So I don't know if maybe that's an option where we approve this tonight and we still schedule that after school meeting sometime in July. That sort of takes the timing pressure off, but allows us to sort of onboard this pilot. So I'm open to feedback on that idea, and I'm happy to make a motion, but thoughts?
Member Rousseau, you had the motion. You were going to put the motion, I think, forward to table. So I'll go to you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get a second, thankfully. And you know, the housing point is one that's quite moving, frankly, for me. So, you know, this is not going to be money that's going to be in our budget. I mean, because our budget is being presented tonight. So, you know, there's an assumption that we're going to find the money in these revolving accounts, which we have all of the totals in the actual budget presentation, although those are the end of last fiscal year totals, not the current totals. If Mr. McHugh believes he can find the money, and if he can't find the money, if the city can perhaps provide the money out of the quote free cash, you know, that's all, you know, somebody has to write the check, and it's not the school budget. We're not cutting anybody else to do this. And I mean, as Member Branley pointed out, I mean, it's like, this doesn't look good. I remember in Papa, I believe, I'm sorry, I forget who said it, but, you know, my concerns about union work remain. I'm not particularly pleased with the amount of money that these folks will get paid. I believe they'll be the lowest paid workers in the district. But I also can't ignore the needs in the after school program, which is only a portion of the day. So we've talked about that extensively, but there's the rest of the day. They have to be doing something. So I think that if we can have answers to that at a meeting in July, I would be moved to the point where I could agree to approve this, just because I do think that if you know tonight, then folks can perhaps get into the July 1 hunt for a place to live rather than the August one, which is the exact same time when all of the college students in Medford at Tufts are all looking for housing. My concerns remain. I would like us to have a meeting to discuss them, but I would be moved to a yes vote on this.
So then I will make a motion to approve the two teams as discussed for McGlynn and Missituck. And that we'll have a summer meeting about resuming our conversation around after school programming.
And create a plan for how to maintain the levels that will be implemented next year. Motion by Member Graham, seconded by hopefully my amendment can get in there.
As amended.
Thank you. Seconded by Member Reinfeld. Roll call, please.
Member Branley.
Yes.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Papa.
Abstain.
Member Olapade.
Yes.
Member Reinfeld.
Yes.
Member Russo, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 abstention. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
Next, we have the recommendation to approve a 5-year contract for a new telephone system. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Peter Cushing, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the school committee. Under state law and statute, any contract of 5 years needs to come before the governing body. And our current telephone system is aging out. It also costs more than we can get by going to the open market. The reason why we went with Zoom is because of several reasons, but primarily we utilize them for hosting this meeting, doing a great many other things throughout the district. This will give us the ability for us to also consider reducing our cell phone fleet and reducing costs there as well. We should be able to save about $25,000 a year. And that number will come down just a little bit as we look to add phones to the high school. I've written a grant, rather large grant, that's before the Department of Justice, to add telephones to every high school classroom. It's the only building in the district that doesn't have telephones in each classroom. So we'll be able to deploy that as well. So part of the 5-year agreement, they're going to provide us nearly $90,000 in an upfront credit. We'll be able to have a professional company, Harbor Networks, come in over the summer, starting in August, deploy the new phones, remove the old phones, and get everything up and running smoothly with no impact to daily operations. So, but once again, need the body's approval to do this. This would also take away the $13,000 we spend annually on Zoom. It would take away about, it would reduce our cost to about $7,500 a month. We pay about $8,600 to $8,700 per month for current telephone service across the district. These would be VoIP phones that are powered over internet.
Thank you, Dr. Cushing. Let me just.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Member Graham.
Good.
Seconded by Member Olaparte. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll
Has
call,
to be a
please.
roll call.
Roll call, please. Yeah.
Member,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapate,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Russo, yes, Mayor Longo Craig.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cushing. We have recommendation to approve 5-year contract for new time reporting system. Again, Dr. Peter Cushing, Assistant Superintendent.
So we've been working on time clocks and time reporting and various things like that. One of the things why I'm requesting a 5-year, that's the life of the devices. We'll get a free additional year of their replacement service. Also negotiated $300 off per device. So that's a $4,500 savings, and the 1,000 time clock ID cards that can also dual roll. Once we start moving to electronic door locks, we won't have to worry about that. People will already be provisioned, and they can be printed as identification badges as well with our existing system. So requesting approval of this. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Can you, do you mind elaborating a little bit more on this? I'm sorry, I missed the first sentence or two.
Yep. So as we move forward with time clocks, this will directly connect into our frontline system. It will assist with our payroll processing to make sure that our accuracy is spot on. It will also be able to help us make sure that our overtime is accurate and allows for time reporting. This will put 2 devices, 1 device at the Curtis Tufts High School, 2 devices in each of the other schools, 1 at the loading dock, 1 at the main office, and at the high school, 1 in Kids Corner, 1 at the main security desk, and 1 at the loading dock as well. The primary places where people enter the buildings.
Okay, and this has all been budgeted?
Yes.
Okay, Member Graham?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Cushing, because we have been having this conversation in negotiations about exactly how this will work. And just last week, one of our bargaining partners was describing that this exact system is what they wanted to see us implement. So thank you for not being in the room, but knowing what that was and making it happen. So appreciate that. And I think, you know, the direct connection to frontline is critically important to streamlining how we pay our staff, how we ensure that we're paying people for overtime in accordance with the contract and the law and all of that stuff. So thank you for all of that. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion of approval by Member Graham, seconded by Member Rousseau. Roll call, please.
Member Branley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes, Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion is approved. If I could get a motion to take a paper out of order, 2024-30.
Motion to take 2024-30 out of order.
Thank you, Member Graham. Seconded by.
Second.
Member Reinfeldt, I believe that was. Roll call, please.
Member Branley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes, Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Thank you. Motion's taken out of order. It's 2024-30, offered by myself. Administration of the government, consolidation of administrative functions with city or town. Section 37M-A, notwithstanding the provisions of Chapter 41 or Chapter 7D1 or any other special or general law to the contrary, any city or town which accepts this provision of this section may consolidate administrative functions, including but not limited to financial, personnel, and maintenance functions of the school committee with those of the city or town, provided, however, that such consolidation may occur only upon a majority vote of both the school committee and in the city council with approval of the mayor required by law or in a town, the annual town meeting, or in a town with no town meeting, the town council. B, notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, a decision to consolidate functions pursuant to paragraph A of this section may be revoked by a majority vote of either the school committee of the city or town, or the city or town, or both as such vote is described in said paragraph A. I put this before you as it was something that's been talked about from when I was a city councilor. I believe the conversation started in the 2018 timeframe, and it never fully moved forward. So this is the way you have to accept it. Although, you know, I am happy to come before you with any, and I'm sure the school administration is as well, with any specific requests. First and foremost, I think this will help a great deal with facilities. We want a big goal of mine, and I know it's part of the committee's goals, is to get routine maintenance in our schools. We hope to have more funding soon to be able to do that. And I think this, along with all the work that the negotiation team did, would go a very long way and make that happen. So we have contracts set up and running to maintain our not so new schools anymore. So just ask for your approval on this paper. We will keep you up to date on anything moving forward, and happy to request a vote if need be, but definitely we'll keep you updated. Member Rousseau.
Thank you. As I understand this statute, this will simply mean that you all can start having conversations about doing this work, that absolutely no sharing of resources occurs when we agree to this, that if we want to share any resources, those individual decisions will come to the school committee and the city council, and we will vote whether we agree or not. Is that correct?
I think, no, I understood it that once you accept this, it can be done, but it would have to come before the school committee for any type of budgetary vote. So if this money is coming out of school monies, then yes, you'd have to vote for it. I'm not sure the city council would as well, unless it was coming out of city funding, then yes, it would have to be part of a budget or a supplemental budget.
I'm not understanding. So you're suggesting that this paper allows the superintendent and the city to get together and decide that maintenance will now be a city function, that utilities won't be charged to the schools anymore. We'll just have them charged out of the schools, that will move any of the functionalities, information system, the IT department, those that you and who else gets to decide that that is now just a city function?
I would expect tomorrow night that I would hope that they would approve this, and I would expect to be paper, that it would just be for facilities moving for now, and then we'd have to go before, and this body can do the same. And then if we want to expand that, we can always take another vote.
So facilities being the obvious one, and you've mentioned it, and I think everybody assumes that that's what we were talking about. So if we approve this, that means the school committee no longer has oversight of facilities, as is the case in Somerville. During the pandemic, the school committee lived through hell because the city did not open the schools, because the schools were 100% facilities-wise were a part of the city of Somerville, and that is still the case today. So if we have any maintenance challenges, the rational thing for the community to do is to ring up the school committee, at which point we will say, sorry, not our job, call City Hall. And I just want that to be clear that that's the situation we'll be in. And if we are unsatisfied with how the city is doing the maintenance in our buildings, which I have no reason to believe that's the case, that would happen. But if that happens, our only option would be to end this entirely, abruptly. Just decide that no longer the city has any responsibility for facilities. Is that how you understand this?
That may be how some cities and towns handle it. I do not see that it would operate that way. So for example, if you were going to put IT under one director fully, and then if you're going to say, yeah, do it with IT, I could see that being the case. But where we have a facilities maintenance director in the schools, we would just be putting somebody in charge to oversee, to help guide, to put the appropriate contracts into place, to create a system to help create a system and help train and get that job done, especially if we're going to have an influx of potential monies that we want to be spent towards maintaining our schools. It's a lot for one person to handle. And that person also oversees all the custodial work, from what I understand. So I feel like this would be an extra support and another level. So I see it a little bit differently.
Great. And my last question is, so this person will not report to the superintendent or has supervision within the school system, correct? If our director of facilities was reporting to the director of DPW or whoever it would be, director of facilities at the city, that person would be doing their review. The contract would be a mayor signs the contract, not the school committee or the direct superintendent.
Yeah, in this one case, I would see that this director of facilities would still be a direct report to the superintendent. If there's somebody overseeing that work, that could also be a second direct report.
Okay, thank you.
Member Graham?
Thank you. And I sort of am feeling like, well, two things. One is I'm in favor of having these discussions because I think, to your point about the opportunities that having some additional support might provide is good. So I'm sort of inclined to say what I'd like to see us do is adopt the statute, which we have to do in order for any of this to be legally possible, but also adopt the statute with an amendment that states that that before any sort of change happens, that plan will be presented to us for review and approval. And the reason I say that is because there's any number of ways where this, like, I think we've just talked about like 5 of them literally in a minute, that this could happen. It could just simply be support, and then everybody still reports to the superintendent and the school committee still holds the contracts. It could be that the contracts go somewhere else. It could, any number of things could happen in any of these departments. So what I would like to see is that we agree that we should investigate what these options are and bring those proposals back to this group before those actions are taken.
I think that's absolutely fine. I just asked that it be a B paper. From what I understand, this language has to be adopted as is, but you can absolutely do a B paper to make those restrictions.
So we don't usually do B papers. So, so do I make a motion to like approve the paper and then somebody else adds a B paper? Is that how it happens?
You could do both. You could do both.
Okay. So
Versus
I'll make a motion
tabling the
to-
motion versus tabling this until we see that plan.
What I'm saying is we would be accepting the statute. So we would make a motion to accept the statute, which has to happen in order for the statute to be accepted. And then there would be a B paper added that is a motion that requires school committee approval before any plan is implemented for shared resources. So
Then
what we would be doing tonight would simply be opening the door to have that discussion.
And that would allow us to know this in general, this is supported, especially with, say, facilities, and allow us to build that plan to bring to the school committee for approval or denial.
Member Rousseau, do you need me to repeat that?
Let me tell you what I wrote down. Motion to approve 2024-30 and require school committee approval for any plan before sharing resources.
Two motions, main paper and then the B paper. Yes. Okay, that's my motion.
Motion for approval of the main paper and B paper by Member Graham. I'll do the main paper first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Member Branley. Roll call, please, on the main paper.
Member Branley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Ntapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
No.
Member Rousseau, no. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. The paper passes. And second is the B paper to bring a plan of action to the committee before anything is implemented by Member Graham, seconded by
I'll second.
Member Ntapa. Roll call, please.
Member Branley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Ntapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes. Thank you.
Motion to revert to the regular order of business.
Second.
Motion to revert to the regular order of business, seconded by Member Graham, seconded by Member Ntapa. Roll call, please.
Member Branley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Ntapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade, Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. I'm going to ask Member Graham, do you have a copy of the agenda?
I do.
Take over. I'm going to abstain and not take part in this discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, full disclosure. Yeah, my sister's a teacher in the Medford Public Schools. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you.
I also have to make a motion.
Hold on one second.
You tell me when.
Okay. There's a recommendation to approve the FY25 Medford Public Schools operating budget by Mr. Jerry McHugh, Director of Finance. So the mayor is abstaining from this vote entirely. Member Branley, did you have a conflict you want to cite so that we know what we need to do?
Correct. So I need to make a motion to amend. I need to sever the teacher salary line item, as my sister is also a teacher here in the district. But I can abstain from that part of the vote, but I can vote on the total budget.
Okay, perfect. When the time comes, we will take that up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McHugh, The floor is yours.
Oh, well, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. You hopefully have a copy of the budget that got delivered. I attempted to kind of recap the bit of a roller coaster ride that the budget was during the year. You know, like to thank the staff here and the school committee for their advocacy, and of course the mayor and the city council for adopting the budget that they did. But essentially, the superintendent's recommendation was a budget of about 76 million with $2.2 million worth of cuts. The school committee adopted a budget with 0 cuts. We did receive additional money. I guess I should say, in addition to the savings plan that we proposed at the time of the public hearing, there was still this over $5 million worth of additional savings that we would have to come up with in the absence of any additional money. So that was a big piece of what the city council funded. They also gave sufficient money for us to kind of reduce that savings plan from 2.2 million to about 1.6. That allowed us to bring back positions that we previously identified as being cuts: 2 high school teachers, 2 elementary teachers, 4 administrators, and a nurse back in the budget, along with some positions that we were not going to try to fund from the ESSA program. And those additional positions were 2 literacy coaches and 3 para behavior specialists. So those positions are now back in the budget. The contracts fully funded, the chronically underfunded accounts fully funded, all the ESSA positions that we had proposed that were essential to some vital programs that we run here in Medford Public Schools. Those are in the budget, along with some new spending, some of which is required and some was proposed as more discretionary but necessary in the operations of Medford Public Schools. So I was going to spare you another PowerPoint presentation and just kind of open it up to questions that you might have before we take the vote.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. For the committee, are there any questions? Member Lapade and then Member Intapa.
Yeah, so just a couple quick, just line items that I'm sure will be explained very easily. I know that the most important thing for, I think, the committee to understand, that I'm sure we all do, is that just the costs of living have gone up. So a lot of the ways that we need to pay for things have gone up as well. For example, when we're looking at the special education line item, there's an increase, I can just find it right here, that goes up, from the 2023-2024 from 15 million to upwards of 19.5 million. So just things like that, where there are those really noticeable increases, I'm assuming it's just because of cost more than any other, flagship programming that we're doing or any major differences in the district. If that's untrue, that might be really good for us to have some more direct explanation from the administration about how those programs might be costing us. But if it's just increased because of cost of living, then that's something that I don't necessarily need a more clarification on.
Well, I'd say that there's 2 things. Costs did increase, and part of our new spending proposal was the fact that the state had granted tuition adjustments for all out of district placements. I think it was 4.69%. And then there's just kind of growth in the program. Even though I think Medford does a pretty good job of offering a lot of opportunity for special needs students in district, that you do have some growth. Oftentimes students will be placed in a collaborative or least restrictive setting, and if it's not working out, they have to go into a setting that might have more therapeutic options for that student. So that kind of adds cost, and that's where the growth comes in. The other thing, and this was just, I guess, a difference of how to present the budget, but all of our adjustment counselors, of which we have a substantial amount, were, even though they were charged to the special education budget, they were presented in the budget last year as part of the guidance budget, because I guess because the director of guidance, provides a supervision for those adjustment counselors. So those adjustment counselors, I think so you'll be able to make sense of a budget to actual report. Those adjustment counselors are budgeted in the special ed program in FY25. And you probably noticed that the guidance program, which is program 19, I think, that probably went down, because of that shift.
Thank you.
Sorry, Member Intapa.
You're good. Thank you, Vice Chair Graham. Jerry, I just want to take a moment and make a few thank yous. One, for creating this detailed report and giving like a history lesson so that someone who missed everything and may have been like, wait, what happened? And, this tells the story of what happened and sort of what's been going on. So I really want to thank you. I was actually talking to someone the other day about transparency and with budgeting, and they were like, well, is it going up? Is transparency going down? I'm like, it seems like it's going up with the packet I just received, how we're getting all this information, that's conversations on record, all these things. So just thank you. And to also—
Happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I also want to say, I don't want to sound nonchalant when I talk about cuts, but I do want to acknowledge that these are people's lives and positions. So I don't want it to seem so casual when we discuss this. So I want to acknowledge that and all the people who made their voices heard. But Jerry, just a quick question. So in here, I believe it's page 13, it talks about adding back positions that were cut. And maybe I just misread, so this is why we asked the questions. So the performing arts director, the assistant director of athletics, are those all positions now funded through the budget because they're not listed here anymore?
Yeah. The 4 administrators that were brought back into the budget were the coordinator of world language, the assistant athletic director, and director of health and PE, the library media director, and a special education coordinator.
Okay. So the director of performing arts is still
out. Yes.
Understood. Okay. Just wanted to double check, because as much as I just talked about transparency, that just wasn't clear, and wanted to double check with that. I think at this moment, that's all I have, but if another question arises, I will let it be known.
Okay.
Thank you.
And certainly feel free to email if it comes up later.
Sounds good.
And thank you, Member Intapa. And I think that's an important clarification. My understanding, though, is that for the administrators unit, one of the positions that was cut, that individual actually has accepted another position in the district, so she is remaining with the district. And then my understanding of the performing arts position is that the individual in that role has resigned, so the position is open. And so I would like somebody, maybe Ms. Galusi, Dr. Galusi, to describe the vision for supporting performing arts under this new structure, if this budget passes.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for updating the things that are kind of rolling as we go. So because that position, that person has left the district, right now we have Suzanne Fee, who is the director of fine arts. And so we would be consolidating the two departments. And so Suzanne Fee will also be running both the performing arts and the fine arts departments. I think it's important to note that that is the way institutionally Medford has done the arts departments. It's only been for 2 years that we created coordinator positions where we kind of separated the fine arts from performing arts. And so in order to kind of have more of a district-wide view for the arts program, because there is a lot of overlap, and Suzanne currently also has a nice relationship with the performing arts, we would be merging the two so that she would be in charge of both departments. I know that the superintendent, Suzanne Fee, and I plan on having conversations this week and throughout the summer with teachers within the music department, as well as parents that are affiliated with clubs through the performing arts department, so that we can answer some questions and have just some discussions on where we go from here. I hope that's helpful.
That is. Will this be a promotion for Ms. Fee with taking on the extra department, or does this all fall under her current Director 1 job description?
It would still qualify under Director 1.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, Member Reinfeld.
Yes, thank you, Mr. McHugh, and everybody who contributed conversations, both within the administration and within the community. These were not easy conversations, and I appreciate the clarity of this story. One thing that this story doesn't tell that I think is important to say on the floor in this meeting is that this whole process has revealed a lot of important conversations that need to happen. It has the potential cuts from the initial budget proposal have revealed the challenges in the high school schedule, the middle school schedule, the enrollment and distribution of students across the schools, particularly the elementary schools. It's raised questions about the stipend rates, and then the timing of the budget cycle itself and how it coincides with non-renewals and everything. So I think that is really important to keep in mind. It's not immediately germane to the approval of the budget at hand. But the one thing that I would like to do, I would like to make a motion that the school committee receive a report by December 7th describing the implementation and impact of the position reductions that were not related to enrollment, just to understand how the intended and unintended consequences of the decisions are going to affect next year's budget request. Because what I hate seeing in budgeting is when a position goes away, and I will say I'm particularly concerned about some of the middle school positions, but when it goes away and then we never go back to say, how did that pan out? Things just disappear and fall off the budget. So I would like to see a report to inform the next budget cycle of how those impacts affected.
So a motion to receive a report by December 7th that specifically accounts for what has transpired, where any position reductions are maintained in this budget. Is that correct?
Yes, and so I had phrased it, the report describing the implementation and impact of position reductions between the previous and current year budgets to understand the unintended and the intended and unintended consequences of these decisions will affect the budget request for the upcoming fiscal year. I'm happy to send that to someone.
Send it to me.
You could send it to Member Rousseau.
Yes.
So there's a motion on the floor by Member Reinfeld. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Rousseau. But let's sort of pause game and take this motion. I tell that to my kids when I want them to do the laundry or really anything else in life. So on the motion by Member Reinfeld, which was seconded by Member Rousseau to receive a report by December 7th about these position reductions and the implementation, Member Rousseau, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Member Bramley.
Yes.
Member Graham.
Yes.
Member Ntapa.
Yes.
Member Olapade.
Yes.
Member Reinfeld.
Yes.
Member Rousseau, and the mayor is absent.
Yes, I believe so. I'm just looking, yes. You can mark her absent. So 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent, no, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, sorry. The motion is approved. Member Rousseau, you had your hand in the air. Actually, Member Reinfeld, are you done with your questions?
That's all I have to say for now. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Rousseau.
Thank you. I'm going to just quickly go through. I had a lot of questions. I'm trying to keep them brief. I just wanted to comment that in the message from the superintendent, on the 3rd paragraph, it does say that we're fully funding programs and positions formerly funded with our ETRA grant, and I believe there are still a couple that we did not continue. Is that correct?
That is true. That is true. That's poor.
That's fine.
I should have said almost fully funded.
That's fine. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you. And thankfully I put tabs, which this is a lot easier in person to do this stuff. I wanted to comment on page 7, under federal grants. I see this sentence in here, which made me very happy, and I just wanted to thank you. It says, when these grants are received during the course of the fiscal year, the actual grant amount received will be presented to the school committee for acceptance. I am very thankful for that. We have not done that in the past. And it doesn't change anything financially, but it does keep us more informed about what's coming in, where it's going. So I want to thank you for
It's
including.
actually a statutory requirement.
Oh, sorry.
There's that.
There's that, right? I didn't mean to shush you. That came across wrong.
Yeah.
On page 9, the Medford Family Network, there's a negative balance of $70,000.
Yeah.
Quite surprising, and wondering, where does the money come from that goes in there, and how are we operating the Medford Family Network with such a massive negative balance?
Over the summer, I think we have to just unpack that, and it's possible. What we think's happening is that people are being charged too much to that account and not enough to other accounts that are part of the Medford Family Network funding stream. So there is a person that oversees those budgets, and she's confident that they're spending, accurately. The initial amount I got was from the city at the beginning of the fiscal year too, which so we started out with that balance. But anyway, that's something that's on the agenda to get to the bottom of.
Okay, thank you. On page 11, under the funding summary, the last sentence of the first paragraph says, with this in mind, the superintendent submitted a budget recommendation of 76.6 million. And then it says increasing the base budget by 8.2 million. And I think that is the 8.2 million. I don't know where you get that from 71.2 to go up to 76 and get 8.2.
Well, the 76 included the $2.2 million savings plan.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. next up, so I'm a little confused by, so we have on page 12 that we had 5 elementary teachers that were included to be cut in this. And when I go across the actual schools, I come up with, and then it says that we restored 3, correct?
Um,
2.
2 at elementary.
So that should leave 3 elementary still cut, but when I go through the rest of the document, I show 7 cuts to elementary teachers. And I mean, I can tell you exactly where they are, and you can tell me if maybe I'm misunderstanding them. On the McGlynn Elementary classroom teachers, I see 2 teachers are cut, correct?
Member So, if I can offer a point of clarification real quick. Does this have to do, Mr. McHugh, with the kindergarten teachers? Because there were 4 kindergarten teachers added to the budget after it was approved last year. So it doesn't look like a budget cut because they never were in the budget to begin with. Is that
Right,
correct?
that's
Do I
correct.
remember that from the last time we spoke? Okay.
Okay, well then that 4 minus 7 minus 4 is 3, so.
7 minus 4 is 3, yes.
So I feel like that makes sense now. Thank you. I really appreciate this listing of positions and then the little like note at the bottom about like -2 reduced by 2 FTEs or whatever. I think that really was very helpful. Although this issue of adding things after the budget is approved is always the wonkiest part, because like for all it, I went through the Medford Public Schools budgets going back into the 80s earlier this year, I went to the library and there were a couple missing, but almost all of them were there. And, being on the school committee, I know that this is the plan, how we're going to spend money, and has in many regards is not a reality. And, it at the highest level, it's a reality, but all the positions we have in there and we couldn't find somebody, or we didn't actually have the money, like it doesn't tell the story that most people rationally would think it tells. And so, last year we added kindergarten teachers after the budget was set, because we do that often when kids just show up and register. And I'm just wondering if you have recommendations, not for today, but for, whether there's a policy recommendation you could have where there's some kind of a document or something that we can create that will help the future school committees and maybe the community, if they're so interested, to really know, okay, this was the plan, this is what happened. As short of my memory and, the
Right.
people in the room, it just disappears into history as this unwritten thing. And it's really a problem, because sometimes many of us have had arguments online about like, well, that's not what really happened. Well, they're looking at the document we published that says this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we might know that didn't happen, but how do we communicate that? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I did try to explain that a little bit on during one of the, I can't remember if it was at a committee of the whole meeting, where when we talked about when we were on class size, we talked about cutting some positions, adding some other positions. And then there was a one line that said, this assumes that the 4 teachers that were added were not going to be tried to be included in FY25. But we could have been more descriptive about that. It's just that it didn't create a savings because the money really never existed. But if they were to be added to the budget, then you'd have the kind of the documentation that you would want whenever you add positions like that after the year starts, you have to make sure that those positions get fixed in the budget, going forward, if it's necessary to keep them.
Got it. Thank you. Of the 18 positions that are still cut, assuming my number's right, and if it's not exact, were all of those positions actually positions with people in them?
I know that the positions that were cut at the high school after we brought back two, those positions were all vacant at some point during the year. The one of the positions that we didn't bring forward from the data and assessment director, that position became vacant, before just a couple of weeks ago.
But most of them did have people.
The re-engagement specialist, the 1.6, they were going to be vacant. So the one that we kept, was still interested in serving in that position. It could have been one of the nurse positions too. I think we had a retirement there.
Okay.
We could, if you want, we could come up with a report.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can probably figure it out. I only put so many hours in the budget, but some of them would have like blanks in there, which I think imply that they were open, like there was not somebody in them. So
Right.
I'm not going to ask for a report. I asked for too many as it is. I do want to, and I don't know if this is just something for the payroll folks or HR to fix, but on this, under district-wide instruction and assessment, we have coordinator of world language, coordinator of art, and coordinator of music. And this, when we settled their contract, they are no longer called coordinators, they're called directors. And obviously their pay is correct and all that other stuff. But I think that for a newbie reading this, you'd be like, oh, coordinator. And I thought there was a director. And just to synchronize those things where appropriate. Those are the only three that I found where the title change would actually be necessary. And I know that one of them we're not funding anyways, so.
That's an easy fix. Yep.
And then. So. I know there was a very long, not long, it wasn't terribly long. There was a memo explaining the kindergarten teacher situation. And there's a lot to that conversation, but I just want to repeat something I think is what I'm understanding is, when we have to do layoffs, we have to do them in a certain order according to the contract, and that at the Missatook, because the staff was newer, they were the folks who we had to lay off, correct? I'm not necessarily all of them. I'm not suggesting, I mean, the non-professional status staff are by default.
Yeah. Well, I guess what happens is the first thing you determine is how many positions do you need? And that's kind of our assessment, was that there were these pockets of lower class sizes, in the mid-teens to upper teens. And would it be more reasonable, given the budget situation, to look at class sizes of between, say, 21 and 23? And then that resulted in how many positions do we need by school? The second look at that is, to the extent there are layoffs, regardless of what school they're in, it's the non-tenured staff first, and that could be, and then there's going to always be some non-renewals based on performance, so that might take care of some of those. And then you try to identify teachers that might that have the certification that could teach in a different school that happens to need a teacher.
Okay. So it's just, the point is it's really quite complicated.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
and we wouldn't target a school just because they had non-tenured or more new teachers. So it was really just based on analysis of how many students are in that school by grade.
Okay. I'll let some other people speak. I have a motion to make, but I'll wait on that. Thank you.
Member Reinfeld?
Quick clarification, are the kindergarten teacher numbers based on projected enrollment or current enrollment?
Well, yes to both. It's you take into account the current enrollment and then you make a projection. Kindergarten is always a little tough because you're not necessarily bringing in everybody who's in a pre-K program. So for kindergarten, we kind of use the average of the last three kindergarten classes. And that's basically what the projection is for next year.
Okay, because I was curious, and I will say I'm more familiar with the Roberts just because that is where I have a student, because the projected enrollment is the same as the current enrollment, but the number of teachers in the budget is less than the current number of teachers. So that is an increase in class size that we're expecting, we're not sure if we're going to need.
Right. Some of it was intentional by bumping up the class size a little bit. The other thing is when the incoming kindergarten students were born, the birth rate actually went down in Medford for that particular year. So that was also a little played a role in the projection. So initially the model suggested that the class sizes might be slightly lower because of that. But because of the increase in the prior year, I felt like we should err on the side of, what we saw last year in terms of enrollment.
Does the housing market play a role in that in terms of, I know
I think
there are neighborhoods where we're seeing a lot of younger families move in unrelated to the birth
so
rates.
that's a bit of a wild card because that can kind of skew the numbers up or down because those parents aren't reflected in the Medford birth rate.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions from the committee?
Maybe I should also offer here that we're looking at those kindergarten registrations on a weekly basis. So, we have our eyes on the Roberts and the Brooks. They're not, the registrations have not exceeded our predictions yet, but they're probably close, given the time of year we're at, and the McGlynn and the Miss Tucker still kind of look like they're on track, but we would want to take some action as soon as possible if we felt like we had to add some kindergarten grades.
Thank you. Member Rousseau?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion at this time. I'd like to motion that Vice Chair Graham will work with the Financial Task Force on behalf of the school committee to request additional supplemental funding in fiscal year 2025 to increase the substitute pay, addition of K teachers in order to lower class size, increase after-school capacity, and to fund recruitment of permanent substitutes for all schools. And the substitute pay, that's the end quote. And I know that in some communities, or maybe even many or most communities, substitute pay is actually part of a contract. In Medford, it isn't. So I think that is both good and bad. If it was in a contract, maybe it would be higher already, but because it's not, we can actually be, if we can secure more funding, and we can target it that way, we can increase our substitute pay to whatever we want. Well, assuming we can find the money, to really solve what is a crisis, I think, in some places where there's just no substitutes. And, whether it's a pay problem or not, I mean, the way our lives are created and oriented nowadays and the cost to live in Medford and all the other things makes it hard to find people for sure. But when there are some number of people doing this work and they have choices, Medford at one rate and then one town over, 100 yards away for dramatically more money, it's kind of hard for anybody to rationally choose the worst pay. So that's my motion. I'm happy to
I'll
repeat it.
second that.
Member, so can you repeat it again?
I can, yes.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Graham will work with the Financial Task Force on behalf of the school committee is the City Financial Task Force, in case anybody doesn't know. On behalf of the school committee to request additional supplemental funding in fiscal year 2025 to increase the substitute pay, addition of K teachers to lower class size, increase after-school capacity, and recruitment of permanent substitutes for all schools. And I'm going to drop it in the chat so any member that likes to read can do that. Once I figure out how to do this for all.
Thank you. Member Intapa, did you have a question about the motion?
I was hoping to possibly make an amendment to also and add into the language to find a way to increase the stipend pay for the band director, with the idea that the pay that it is at may not be attractive to external candidates and that there will be a significant decline in the program's activity.
That's contractual.
Is it contractual? Is that
It's in the teacher's contract. All the stipend rates are there.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Then I rescind the amendment.
But to your, I think to the spirit of what you were trying to do, Member Intapa, one of the things like on my personal list, if we are to see a successful override in November, is to get back to addressing those stipends. I know there have been some joint labor discussions with the teachers union about those stipends, which obviously has stalled because there has been no money in the budget to really think through that. But in terms of like sort of how did we create the number is like complex question in terms of like where those override numbers came from, but very much on my mind were a number of things, including the stipend, the stipend sort of district-wide, not just for the band, but for all of our athletic coaches, for all of our after school, all of our advisors and all of that. So it's sort of a packaged deal that when you think about all of those stipends together, it is not a few $1,000s that needs to change. It's quite significant. So I am hopeful that with a successful 2 override votes in November, that we will have some breathing room to be able to get back to that conversation. So I'll see you at the doors, convincing people of that with me.
Thank you for the clarity, Vice Chair Graham. If I could actually make I don't know if this is an amendment, making an amendment, if Member Rousseau is making the amendment herself, or if I could second the amendment to increase funds available. Huh?
I'm just suggesting that might be the language you could use.
Yes, I would be willing to adapt that language. Amend my amendment to amend to that language for the amendment of your motion. So be it there.
That's acceptable.
Okay. Member Rousseau, can you read the amended motion?
Absolutely. Vice Chair Graham will work with the Financial Task Force on behalf of the school committee to request additional supplemental funding in fiscal year 2025 to increase the substitute pay, addition of K teachers to lower class size, increase after-school capacity, increase funds available to additional funds to increase stipend pay in negotiations with our union partners, and recruitment of permanent substitutes for all schools.
Okay, on the motion by Member Rousseau, seconded by Member Reinfeld. Roll call, please.
Many things can I do at once? Member Brandley.
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapate,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld.
Yes.
Member, so yes, Mayor is absent.
So 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, the motion is approved. Thank you all for that. And I have taken notes on my tasks going forward, and we will hopefully report back with something successful. Before I do want to ask if there are members on Zoom who would like to provide comment. But before we do that, I just had a couple of things I wanted to say and clarify that I think is important. So this budget does tell a really nice story about how we got here over the course of many meetings through a open and transparent process. So thank you for that, Jerry. This also does reflect a lot of what I would call budget cleanups. So one of the things that does make that that does get complicated in future years when you come back and look at this budget, you're like, why did that change so substantially? And so maybe there is a need to put an asterisk in the budget that says like there was sort of cleanup of accounts and movement and reclassifications that happen, which the consequences, like some of these accounts look like they either artificially inflated or deflated, when in fact, it really was just a reflection of reclassifying positions into the right places. I also thought the format was very digestible, and I appreciated completely that we didn't kill nearly as many trees in the printing of this budget as we do on the regular when we print budgets. The other thing that I thought was really compelling, and I just wanted to say thank you for it, was the charts at the front that really clearly describe like what are our enrollments in each school and in each grades, and how does the staff that supports the building lay out in the various buildings. And so if you look at, you know, what happens on page 4 and what happens on page 5, you have a really clear picture of how many students are in this building. And you have a really clear picture of like, and what staff is there to support them. So I think that's something that's been very missing from our budgets for a really long time. So I am really happy with that. I love the new format. It didn't take me like 17 years to read the budget and get ready for this meeting. And because it sort of provided that narrative that you just have to sort of sleuth together yourself. So thank you. Thank you for all of that. And I will say, just to sort of quickly recap for people who are on the call and listening, under the citywide budget ordinance, the process kicked off for us in February, and in March, the mayor is required under the ordinance to provide an initial allocation. And when she did at that time, it was $73.5 million. We then, Jerry and team and the superintendent then got to work to try to land somewhere in hybrid territory of like, not just what do we need, but like, how could we possibly get to that number, because this ramp off of ESSER is significant and important. In the end, the work of the mayor with the approval of the city council brought our budget to $77.75 million. So that's like a multi-million-dollar increase over the initial allocation. So I think that's a really important point, that we have avoided cuts that we hadn't even yet brought ourselves to discuss, because the city was able to find some additional funding for the schools. And that is super important. This budget is not a level service budget because there are still cuts. That is true. This budget also does not do that many new things. So there are some new things that are happening administratively in terms of properly funding accounts that were underfunded before. So there are things happening that I think are really important that are new. But in terms of like new programs that you would be able to see or sort of feel in the schools, there's not much in the way of new programming planned under this budget. And hopefully there are better days ahead on that front as well, as we look forward. So I am going to ask if there's anyone who would like to provide comment please just raise your hand. I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes. And if you could start by giving us your name and address for the record, that would be appreciated. So if there is anybody who would like to provide comment, please put your hand in the air. Jessica Healy.
Hi, Jessica Haley, Forelock Road, Medford. I just have a question. I'm not sure if this exactly has to do with the budget, but if we have a 6th grade special ed teacher at the McGlynn.
Superintendent, can you answer that question? Is there a 6th grade special ed teacher at the McGlynn? I don't know if you can do that one off the top of your head.
I want to say yes.
Ms. Bowen?
Is Ms. Bowen on the call?
I see her square.
I know that due to IEPs, we must remain in compliance to serve all of our students. So I know there's an A side and a B side, so that for all of our students on IEPs, they will be receiving appropriate services because we are mandated by law to do that. Even if it's a different grade level, we are mandated to service all of our students that are on IEPs. So I can assure you that all students will receive appropriate services.
There are
And
10
If I could address
Jen?
that too.
Sure.
Yes, I just want to let Jessica know that the job has been posted and Mr. Tucci and I are in the process of interviewing candidates for that specific position. So our intent is to have it filled by the start of next school year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Bowen. Any other questions or comments? Lily Scott?
Dr. Cushing, are you able
Oh,
to?
here we go. Hi,
Hi.
Lily.
I was on mute. Sorry.
That's okay.
Lily Scott, 30 College Ave. Thank you for the information tonight. Just had a quick question on the numbers where it said that 3 elementary school teachers were cut district-wide. And just wanted to confirm that was true because it looked like when comparing the numbers on the sheet that the superintendent sent out on Friday, that it actually looked like more cuts were there. So I was just curious where those numbers kind of balanced.
Lily, I can maybe take a shot at that. So while there's a net reduction of 3 positions in this budget, and that includes increases in some places and decreases in other places. So the net reduction is 3, but that there are additions in various places and offsetting reductions. So yeah, the picture is very complicated, but if you saw the superintendent's memo, I think from Friday night, after the table, there's a good explanation of the reductions happening across the district, but I can't remember off the top of my head if the additions were focused on there as well. So you'd have to sort of use the chart and the description to net that out. Any other questions, comments? For the school committee, is there a motion to sever the teacher's line item from the budget?
There's a motion by member Brandley. Is that right?
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Intapa. Roll call, please.
Member Brandley,
Yes.
I think that was a yes. Member Graham?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Member Ntapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeldt,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes, Mayor Longo-Kern is absent.
6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, the motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the teacher line item in the budget?
Motion to approve the teacher line item in the budget.
Motion to approve by Member Rousseau,
Second.
seconded by Member Lapade. Roll call, Member Rousseau.
Member Brandley.
Abstain.
Oh, right, sorry. I shouldn't have even asked. Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Ntapa. John, I missed that. Yes, okay.
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeldt,
Yes.
Member so yes, Mayor Longo-Kern is absent.
5 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, 1 absent. The teacher line item of the Medford Public Schools 2024-2025 budget passes. Before we continue, I see somebody with a hand. Christina, you have 2 minutes.
When looking at the elementary memo, the class sizes aren't really compared consistently school to school. I believe that in the Brooks, the general classroom numbers are 100% of the kids. And so that shows like a maximum amount of kids in your classroom at a time. Whereas at the other schools, that have sub-separate classrooms that work differently, where the student is placed with the sub-separate classroom teacher, but then pushes in for academic and social time. Those numbers are all a minimum student like class, like how many students you'd have present in your classroom. And that was kind of upsetting, like getting that document, especially because it was titled equity, like that the classes were being made equitably. And I think like using that word inaccurately, we're really talking about making the classes equally. It really felt badly because first, the numbers aren't really a fair comparison. And then that doesn't even take into account looking at the needs. So I just wanted to state that because I think if there is a document that's going to be comparing, I know it's hard to make a real document of how many bodies are really in a classroom at a time. But that one was misleading. And also the way the cuts are expressed as being like 2 cuts I know at our school at Mississauga, it said 2 cuts and and at the other schools, it might not actually have been whatever it said because you're looking at like the class rising and like that's really where the cuts are, not so much at the grade level, which is like a whole group of kids coming in. So I just wanted to state that. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Jessica, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Hello, I'm Simon Parks, and
Hi,
I
Simon.
think that hello, and I think that I think that I forgot what I was gonna say. Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Simon. We all do that from time to time. Even when you're on the school committee, we do it too.
Do you want to say something or no? Are you done? Okay, he's done.
Thank you, Simon. We look forward to you running for school committee someday, okay? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the FY 2024, FY 2025 budget?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the budget by Member Reinfeldt.
A second.
Seconded by Member Brandley. Roll call, please.
Member Brandley,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Ntapa,
Yes.
Member Olapate, Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Rousseau, yes. Mayor Longo-Kern is absent.
6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. The FY25 budget, which comprises the 2024-2025 school year, has passed. We are going to move on to new business. Item 2024-29 offered by Member Rousseau is a new policy around capital planning, or it's a codification of our policy that did come out of the strategic and capital planning subcommittee some weeks ago. So thank you, Member Rousseau, for writing it. It is something that we will have to submit to the MSBA shortly with our capital maintenance and capital planning deliverable. I'm going to read it and then take any questions. So the school committee will develop a capital improvement plan annually. Preparations for annual approval of the capital improvement plan will be scheduled in phases throughout the school year with attention to certain deadlines. So phase 1, capital project identification. Between September 1st and October 15th, the superintendent will ensure that school building leaders have submitted all outstanding maintenance work in the district-wide ticketing system. Phase 2, strategic and capital planning subcommittee meeting. Target dates October 15th to November 30. The strategic and capital planning subcommittee will meet to review and prepare recommendations for the committee of the whole to be held per phase 3. The subcommittee will create 4 lists of projects: capital projects eligible for Community Preservation Act funding, capital projects eligible for net school spending, capital projects not eligible for community preservation or net school spending, and D, all capital projects. The subcommittee will prioritize the individual items within each list, and the school committee will forward these artifacts to the committee per phase 3. In phase 3, the committee of the whole review and approval will occur between December 1st and December 31st. The committee will review the projects received from phase 2, and the committee will report a capital improvement plan to the next regular school committee meeting for approval. Phase 4, school committee approval of the capital improvement plan. Oh, give me just 1 second. My computer's going to die here if I don't plug in. I'm going to lose you all. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So the school committee approval of the capital improvement plan in phase 4, target dates January 1 to January 31. The school committee will consider approval of the capital improvement plan. In phase 5, the capital improvement plan will be submitted to the city council. Target date January 31. The approved school committee capital plan will be forwarded to the city of Medford with a funding request to implement the plan. Phase 6 is a publication of the capital improvement plan, which has a target date of February 28th. The capital improvement plan will be published in the school committee section of the Medford Public Schools website. And phase 7 is inclusion of capital projects eligible for net school spending in the budget request. Target date February 1st to February 28th. All capital projects eligible for net school spending that could be reasonably accomplished within the upcoming fiscal year will be incorporated into the budget request. All capital projects eligible for net school spending but not included in the budget request will be detailed in the budget request as an attachment and explain why all the projects cannot be reasonably accomplished in the upcoming fiscal year. And then phase 8, public school administration submits community preservation committee grant applications with a target date of July 1 to July 31. The grant applications eligible for the Community Preservation Act funding shall be submitted by the community to the Community Preservation Committee. So there's a couple of definitions here as well. One is a definition of the capital improvement plan. A capital improvement plan typically consists of one or more capital improvement projects which are financed through a capital budget. CIPs are important tools for local governments, allowing them to plan strategically for community growth and transformation. A capital improvement project is an asset upgrade or large-scale maintenance work. Some examples of capital projects include building a new school, replacing outdated HVAC systems, replacing a roof, or any project above $150,000 per school building. The Community Preservation Act is a Massachusetts law passed in 2000, enabling communities to assess a tax on real property for open space protection, historic preservation, affordable housing, and outdoor recreation. The Community Preservation Committee is a committee established by the City Council here in Medford to make recommendations for spending of community preservation funds. And the Community Preservation Fund is a city-established fund to contain the monies raised from taxes for the spending of those funds. And then net school spending, all funds expended by the school committee via the budget, grants, or other funds, as well as certain city expenditures such as infrastructure and pensions, excluding certain types of expenditures such as transportation, adult education, and long-term debt. So that is the proposed policy that would line up well with the policy that we passed around our budget process just a week ago, I believe, or 2 weeks ago. Member Rousseau, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, only that you must need a drink of water now. I was looking for any kinds of typos and stuff like we had in the last one, and I think we made it through. So this was the work of the strategic planning subcommittee. We kind of outlined the important dates, and I was tasked with taking those 4 or 5 little notes and turning them into a policy, and they are lining up with the city's budget ordinance, which is that March 1 date isn't actually listed there, but that's why some things have to be done by the 28th of February, but also lines up with our budget policy we just approved a week or 2 ago. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Member Reinfeld? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. In phase 2.2C, the capital projects not eligible for community preservation or net school spending, those just get incorporated into the plan itself and don't need any kind of special call out for funding requests, correct?
Well, those lists really are to
prioritize.
Well, in my mind, each of those lists should be individually prioritized, which is actually the next step. And then how we, if we're asking for funding from the CPC, then even if it's something that could be covered under net school spending, it would be in both lists. Items could be in multiple lists, is my point.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah. So these items not eligible for Community Preservation Act or net school spending would be any major physical upgrade or something that's more than $150,000 that CPC doesn't cover. So I think of these lists as also as a way to communicate to aside from to the council, but to the community as like, here's the real list of projects that we can't do, which is whether it's because we don't have the capacity financially or infrastructure of, staffing or something.
Yep. And so then following on that, it's presumably out of the scope of this policy to request from the city that they respond to the phase 5 here, the approved, we'll forward it to the city of Medford with the funding request. We're going to assume, we're going to assume that that we get that information back, but that's outside the scope of the policy, correct?
Correct. We're going to send it and it'll be added. I think it goes to the city clerk, and if the council wants to pretend we didn't send it, they can do that. I mean, obviously they can't just write a check either. It's for their budget process. And
I just wanted to make sure this communication is coming both ways and we're seeing in a timely manner. I think the way that city council and school committee can work together on this, and of course the mayor's office. And then I was curious how this interfaces with our consent agenda, where we are approving purchases. If it's in the capital plan and in the budget, we still need to approve the actual spending of the money when appropriated. Okay.
Correct.
And then my very last thing, I also did not find any typos, but I think that phase 7, number 1, I think the 2 sentences should each be their own item.
Number 1.
Phase 7,
I see.
1, net school spending, and then the amendment or the attachment should be a separate order or motion to amend it in that way. If I have to make a motion.
So, so this is a policy which requires 2 readings. So somebody can make a motion to approve the first reading, and then this would go on the agenda again. Alternatively, somebody can motion to waive the first reading, and then we can motion to approve the policy.
I'm happy to motion to waive the second reading. This feels, but I was, I was on the I was on the committee in the room when this was made, so let me turn it over to colleagues who are not on the strategic planning, capital planning subcommittee.
I'm happy to waive the first reading, like Member Reinfeld mentioned.
I think we have to.
Okay, so there's a motion to waive the first reading by Member Lapade, yes? Member
Second
Russo?
that.
Second by Member Branley.
We actually have to do it the other way. We have to approve it before we can move the second reading.
Oh, okay. Is that a motion to approve the first reading
As amended by Member Reinfeld.
as
The
amended?
whole extra
Yes.
line break.
Seconded by Member Branley. Roll call, please.
Member Brandlin,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Russo, yes, Mayor Longo Kern, absent.
6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. The first reading has been approved. Is there a motion to waive the second reading?
Motion to waive the second reading.
Motion to waive the
Second.
second reading by Member Branley, seconded by Member Reinfeld. Member Rousseau, if you can call the roll.
Member Brandley,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Russo, yes, Mayor Longo Kern, absent.
6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. The policy has been adopted. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Member Intapa, seconded by
Second.
Member Branley. Roll call.
Member Brandlin,
Yes.
Member Graham,
Yes.
Member Intapa,
Yes.
Member Olapade,
Yes.
Member Reinfeld,
Yes.
Member Russo, yes, Mayor Longo Kern is absent.
6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night.